ICQ Podcast episode 393, Radio Tips to Start 2023. Hello and welcome, fellow amateur radio enthusiasts, to this, our last episode of 2022, episode number 393 of the ICQ Amateur Radio Podcast. And we're proud to be supported this episode by Kelvin Crocker, Golf 1 Zulu Sierra Echo, and of course our monthly subscription donors. In this episode, we join Martin M1MRB, Dan KB6 November Uniform, Caryn KD2 Golf Uniform Tango, Edmund Mike 0 Mike November Golf, and Ed DD5 Lima Papa to discuss the latest amateur radio news. Myself, Colin M6BLY, rounds up the news in brief, and this episode's feature is some tips to get started for 2023. Well, as always, it's your very kind value that you show for our show, and you send that in donations every week, etc., for our subscription donors. That keeps us paying our way and keeps us here working away happily on the internet. And we'd like to thank Kelvin, Golf 1 Zulu Sierra Echo. He joins our subscription donors, and he says, message to the team be like, thanks for keeping everybody entertained on the commute, as well as giving new ideas to investigate in the amateur radio world. He also likes to send on his apologies to Martin as he ghosted him earlier on the talk group in the week. He was having some issues managing a hotspot and thought it was working properly, which is why he didn't get back to the call. But no problems at all, Kelvin. As they reach out to him, and as I'm sure he'll be happy to work you there as well. So many thanks, Kelvin, for joining our band of subscription donors. And your subscription donation will happily go towards our paying our hosting costs, and things like the digital group, etc. So many thanks for getting involved. Now, if you're enjoying the value that we bring to the amateur radio hobby, we ask you to do a very simple task, and all we ask you to do is to visit icqpodcast.com/donate and just turn the value you receive from the show into a financial figure, and select one of the many options there to show your appreciation for what we do. And say everything you send our way, goes towards the show. So we really do appreciate everyone's support this year. Right, well, now we're going to join Martin, Dan, Caryn, Edmund and Ed to discuss and generate thoughts about the latest amateur radio news, including 4-metre ban for Switzerland and award for helping others. As always, hope you enjoy.
The ICQ Podcast. Come for a moment. Stay for an hour.
Well, hi guys, and welcome to episode 393 of the ICQ Podcast. The last one of 2022. We're recording anyway. It goes out on the 1st of the 1st, I think it is, 2023. But tonight, I'm joined by Mr. Dan Romanchik KB6NU. Hi, Dan.
Hey, Martin. How's it going?
We're ducking and diving, mate, and I'm trying to keep out of trouble. Not very successfully, though, Dan. Your side of the pond, we also have Caryn KD2GUT. Got your call sign right again, Caryn. This is becoming a bit too easy for me.
Hi, Martin. Good to hear you. Good to be here. And Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah, great to hear. And that's great. Moving to Germany, we got Mr. Ed Durrant, DD5LP.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Ed. And I trust you're keeping well. And last but not least, young Edmund, down on the south coast of England, Mr. Edmund Spicer, M0MMG. Hi, Edmund.
Hello, Martin. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, a lot going on. Been a quiet few days, but hopefully we've got some good news stories. The guys have been rummaging as well as me, and we have come up with a few. HB9, which is Switzerland, going to get 70 megahertz, the 4-metre band, as of the 1st of the 1st, 2023. Now, I quite like this. Not quite as much as the UK, not as much power as the UK, but at least it's another one on 70 megs, which I'm guessing a lot of the continental television stations that were operating down in that region are now moving off. What do you think, Ed?
Yeah, this podcast in particular often remarks on the 4-metre band. And slowly but surely, it's not only the UK that has 4 metres. The UK had 4 meters before they had 6 meters. So it's been around in the UK a long time. And now we've got Switzerland as the newest country to get this. And it's nice that they're allowed to start using it on the day that we release this podcast. Yeah, we've got, basically they've got the 70 to 70.5 range, but with a gap in the middle for something that's obviously between 70.0375 and 71.125. So there's still some use of the band there. I know in Germany around there, it's the railways that use the frequency. It may be around there that in Switzerland that they use the frequency as well. 25 watts ERP and all modes of modulation. And apart from that, no, only for simplex comms, no remote stations, unattended repeaters or Echolink gateways or anything allowed. So the remote control stations are possible, but you need to apply for a special permission. But in general, it's going to be just for normal station-to-station communications on CW, sideband, and digital.
Yeah, that's a good one that they've got it. So the more people to get it, the better, in my opinion. But hopefully it'll be a worldwide one at some point in time, because it is one of my favourite bands. Caryn, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, we have no 4-meter band here in the States, so we look with envy and of course some happiness for the folks in Switzerland getting access to this. I do have to wonder, in that gap between, I don't know how many people might even accidentally splatter into that midsection. I would wonder about that, and if that is at all a concern. But, beyond that, I think as 4 meters grows and grows and grows and gets more real estate over on your side of the pond, I think it's a wonderful thing. Wouldn't it be nice, though, if here in the States we might one day look forward to something like that? Our rigs, certainly can receive any number of frequencies we don't transmit on. So it would just be a matter, I guess, of getting the right antenna. But good for them. I say good for them. It's something to look forward to. Over to you, Martin.
Yeah. Well, the old 4-meter band, say in the UK, we've got from 70 megs to 70.5, and I can almost guarantee there's one guy puts a call out middle of the afternoon, pretty much every afternoon in South London on the calling frequency 74.450, and he'll put a call out, then he'll move to the repeaters, then he'll move to 2-meter simplex, and it just looks for calls. So it is in use. I've had quite a few good contacts on 4. My IC703 does it. I've got a Anytone 4-meter mobile now, although I have had some of the old ASCOMs. So it's quite often used. Dan, would you hope that you get it as well?
You know what? I'm going to pull off an Edmund Spicer on this one. Since we don't have it here, I know nothing about the 4-meter band, and I'm going to pass on this one.
Yeah, it's a shame you don't have it. It sits between 6 and 2. The biggest, funniest thing, Dan, is I remember last year, or early part of this year, Chris was out in his camper van and he said, there's nothing happening. And he put his 7300 up on 4 meters and he thrust the mic in my hand. I put one call out and the guy held me in a conversation for 45 minutes. It's a rag chew van, really is, because there's not a lot of people on it, but they rag chew, Dan.
Well, I guess because they want to use it, they just keep you going once they hook one of you.
Yes, certainly is. Edmund, what's your thoughts?
That's tended to be my experience of the band as well. I've had very few contacts on there that have been rubber stamp 5 and 9 next type affairs. really, the US would be an ideal place to have the 4-metre band because they would be less liable to interference from Eastern Europe. In Eastern Europe, there is an alternative broadcast band, the OIRT band, that runs from, I think it's about 65.3 to 73 megahertz, something like that. And although the use of that has declined considerably compared to several decades ago, nevertheless, during sporadic E season in the summer, it's perfectly possible here in the UK and elsewhere in Europe, I suspect, for the entire band to be wiped out from broadcast stations coming from Russia and Ukraine and places like that. So if the 4-metre band were available in the US, you probably wouldn't suffer from that problem, which in a way would make the US the ideal place to have it. So hopefully one day it'll come to you, but in the meantime you can enjoy the 1.25 metre band and is it 33 centimetres, up around 900 megahertz, because both of those bands you've got in the States, but we haven't got them in the UK. And it's really great to hear in other countries on, and working Switzerland from the UK via sporadic E certainly ought to be possible, or maybe even via tropospheric ducting if the duct was particularly strong. So I am pleased, Martin. Back to you.
Yeah, well, as I say, it's great. It's all coming. The 1.25 metre band we're never going to get in the UK, because that's where Ofcom in their infinite wisdom decided to put, as Mr. Rothwell calls it, dead and buried, the digital audio broadcaster service. So I don't think we'll ever get that one. But yeah, 4 metres, great. And that kind of moves on to our next news story. And Ed, you put this one in again, or send it to me. For German hams, the temporary band access is extended. Now, this is kind of like in the UK, we have to apply for an NOV. In Germany, they made certain bands available to certain groups of hams on a temporary basis, but it seems every year they renew it, Ed, don't they?
Yeah, there are certain bands that are not in the schedule for amateur radio. Or parts of bands, indeed, as well. So it's a little bit of a strange situation. One of those, coming back to the 4-metre one we just had, we do have a small piece of 4 metres here in Germany as well, which is 70.150 to 205. You got it in here somewhere. 210. So 150 to 210. So that's nice that we overlap with the Swiss and with everybody else, but we've only got a small amount of that. Now, before I forget as well, my understanding is there is at least one, possibly 2 stations in the US that have 4-metre licenses for experimental purposes, and there are beacons running from the US beamed towards Europe. So, Edmund, you may even hear a beacon out of the US on 4 metres when conditions are really good. Okay, so back to this. So in fact, both the bit of the 4-metre band and all of the small part that we also have of the 6-metre band, both of those are not standard allocation, as in we get them no matter what. They have to be requested for by an organisation that does this for the amateur radio fraternity each year, and basically what the regulator, BNet, says is, okay, we'll put up with you not experimenting, but using these set frequencies for another year, but if you cause any interference, you're going to lose the permission straight away, and if somebody interferes with you, well, sorry, you're not going to get any support from us because these are not official bands. So we've got the 6-metre band where it's a 50 to 52 megahertz, and the bottom 400 kilohertz of that is a high power. That's 750 maximum for a Class A license, 100 watts maximum for a Class E license, And again, Class A is the full license, the extra in the US. The Class E is the equivalent of the general in the US or the intermediate in the UK. And 50.4 to 52, there's only 25 watts permitted, because just below the bottom of the 50 meg band, there is still some commercial usage. So those two are very similar, 4 meters and 6 meters. A really strange one is we have an extension to the top end of the 160 meter band. And that's from 1850 to 2000. And this extension is only for weekends. So during the week, you can't use those frequencies. And you can have contest operation, but only in that part of the band, if I understood this correctly. So top band, basically no contests, except in this extension. And this extension is only there at the weekends. So if that's not confusing, I don't know what is. And the last one in this bundle of allocated for another year permissions is that the novice, it's called novice here, but if you like, the general license and intermediate license operators, Class E, normally don't have access to the 13 and 6 centimetre bands, so the microwave bands. And under this ruling, they can use up to 5 watts PEP in parts of those bands. So 2320 to 2450 megahertz and 5650 to 5850 megahertz. And the reason they've been given this extra privilege that they normally would not have is so that they can take part in the Hamnet, which is the mesh network that runs across Germany and German-speaking countries in Europe. So it's basically an extension to the license so that they can actually take part in the Hamnet, if you like, the amateur radio internet, you might want to call it. So all of this is asked for every year. And of course, the network agency can turn around and say, no, we're not going to give you it now. And that'll be an end to those bands. So people who invest in radios for these bands taking a little bit of a risk, but this thing has been renewed for the last 5 years. There's nothing to say that it won't carry on running like this. It would be very nice if these bands and authorizations became part of the standard license, but I have no information that that's ever going to happen.
Well, that was extremely complicated, Ed. I know
that was my point about this. You need to be a lawyer to work out what bands you're allowed to operate on in Germany.
Yeah, I'd be in big trouble if I drove down to Friedrichshafen with my 4-meter rig and wasn't on frequency and all those sort of things. And you've got to obviously check it out. Dan, did you find it complicated? I mean, compared with the US, it's horrendously complicated, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. The one I liked the best was you could only operate the frequencies in the 160 meter band on weekends.
The extension to the 160 meter band.
Right.
So basically, you've got the bottom part of 160 up to 1850 all the time. It's only the 1850 to 2000 that's weekend only.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
The good part is the extension to the in the microwave regions, those bands, so that those folks could operate Hamnet, because I think Hamnet's a pretty cool thing, and I think it's good that making that available to more operators is a good thing.
Yeah, let's hope that when they bring the Class N license in, which is the entry level license that hopefully will take flight sometime during 2023, that they'll give them those operators, otherwise only have 2 meters and 70 sems, I believe. Hopefully they'll get this extension as well.
Yeah, it all sounds good news. All sounds good news on that, I'm sure. Caryn, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I'm still scratching my head a little bit over this. It's hard enough to keep track of most things, but when you have a temporary situation and it's renewed every year, that's encouraging. It's good to have support. And really, for me, the simplest takeaway from this whole mashup actions is that there's a recognition that experimentation is, for many, the heart and soul of amateur radio. And it's good to see that there is ongoing support for that. So that is a good thing. As I say, the rest of it, if I were in Germany, I would have a terrible time keeping track of all of this. You can operate between 3 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon on alternate Tuesdays. It would be a challenge for me. But again, I think just the fact that people are being encouraged to push the limits of the science and the technology is wonderful. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, well, I think if you and I lived in Germany, Caryn, we could just pick the phone up and say, Ed, can we do this or can't we?
I'd be saying, no, stop, no. It's not raining outside, is it? No, you can't do it then.
Yeah. Oh, dear. Well, I just wished, and I don't think I'll ever see it in my lifetime, which is rather a worry, but I just wish that the 3 ITU regions would harmonise and just give us all the same, across all of the bands, so we could all communicate without falling foul. But I know there are lots of reasons why not. So there you go. Edmund, you got thoughts on this one?
Well, off the back of something you said, Martin, about going to Friedrichshafen, Ed, do you know if people who are visiting from outside Germany could operate on 4 meters under the CEPT arrangements?
I suspect, I don't know for sure, but I suspect that these temporary extensions only apply to German license holders. So I don't know for sure, but my guess would be no, because this is a very specific thing that relates back to the terms and conditions of a German license. And whether you can work 4 meters on CEPT in Germany, I don't know. The honest answer is I don't know. If I was pushed, I would say more than likely no. You'd need to take out a German license.
For what it's worth, my feeling is the same as yours, Ed, although I don't know definitively either. But if let us suppose that the answer were to be yes, then if you were going to Friedrichshafen, you would need to make sure that you brought a radio with you that wasn't FM only, because the FM calling frequency pretty much everywhere, as Martin said, is 70 decimal 450 with simplex channels a few kilohertz either side of that, so completely outside and away from the allocation that's allowed in Germany. So FM would be out the door, but SSB, CW, FT8 would be fine. And the frequencies that have been authorised sit quite nicely, because the FT8 frequency, 70 decimal 174, I think, sits within the permissible band, and 70 decimal 200 is the SSB Centre of Activity, to give its official title, but to all intents and purposes it is the SSB calling channel, insofar as one has calling channels on SSB, of course. So I'm glad that Germany have got it. If you try to work Germany via sporadic E from the UK, it won't necessarily matter if your antenna is vertical as opposed to horizontal. My best DX contact on 4 meters was with Iceland, Tango Foxtrot, a couple of summers back. I was using a vertical dipole. He was using rather a lot of stacked and laid horizontal Yagis, and we were 5.9 to each other, so polarization isn't necessarily a problem. If you haven't got a dedicated antenna for 4 meters, if you have a dipole for 12 meters, and I know that's a rather niche thing to say, but if you do have one of those, you will probably be able to get it to tune as a 3.5 wavelength antenna on 70 megahertz, or failing that, I believe it can be possible to get a 40 meter antenna to work half decently on 70 megahertz as well, although it's not something that I've ever tried. But if you want to have a go on the band, it's always worth experimenting with antennas, Martin. Back to you.
Yeah, Edmund, I must jump in there and scupper your idea of running 4-meter mobile down to Friedrichshafen, because no mobile operation is allowed on 4 meters in Germany. Only fixed station and only horizontally polarized. So, portable perhaps, as long as you announce where you are, but mobile is definitely ruled out.
So why only horizontally polarized?
Because the other users that are close by are still vertical. So the railways, for example.
Okay.
So it just adds another 10 dB of reduction in possible interference signals.
Yeah.
Just makes it even more complicated down in my book.
Yep. Well, you've got to stand on one leg with your arm out to the right.
What
holding
if
the
your
HT
antenna's at a
horizontally?
45-degree angle?
No, that's not horizontal. You're breaking the law.
And only on a Wednesday.
And it's a law. It's not just a regulation.
Okay.
I think we better move on before we have tears before bedtime. Caryn, you arranged the next one in, which I thought was really, really good. An award for hams who help others reach their DXCC. Now, Elmering is something that I think everybody on the podcast here does automatically. But to actually see people get an award for this, I think it's a great one, Caryn. What do you think?
I think it's terrific. The Southwest Ohio DX Association decided that, yes, Elmers need love too. And so those who have mentored amateurs who've achieved DXCC and have been cheered on by these Elmers can apply for and get honored, and the award will be conferred at Hamvention. One little restriction here. Can't say I agree or disagree with it, but being over the age of 30, as I am, I would be upset if someone Elmered me to do DXCC and they were not eligible. But this award is only for people who helped somebody under the age of 30. I see merit in that, of course. But then again, what about, the rest of us? Older hams have their challenges as much as younger ones. The point being, I suppose, that you really want to respect and honor the people who reach out to the youngest, because that is once again, the future of the hobby. So good for them, and I expect that it'll be a nice presentation at Hamvention, and this award will become a great incentive for people who may have thought about taking on a protege and haven't. And gee, why not? Not only is it fun, but you could get an attaboy, a pat on the back from your peers. So we feel this is a good move by them. Over to you, Martin.
Yeah, the 30-year age bracket, though, Caryn, also worried me a little bit. Yeah, great. I am pleased that somebody's doing something. But in fairness, I'm double that and some. And I haven't grown up. I'm probably, still acting like a 25-year-old. So why can't somebody mentor me? Hi. No, I'm just for giggles on this one.
But you know what, Martin? Maybe people who act under 30 could qualify.
Yeah, well, Martin Rothwell would say that I definitely act under 30. Oh dear! I think you've got to be young at heart in this hobby and enjoy it, regardless. And well, I'll joke with them about setting an age limit of 30, but in fairness, I think us of a slightly older age group are more likely to force our way forward, because we are of an age where we strive ourselves and probably don't need quite as much help. But that's my thought anyway. So, Edmund, what's your thoughts on this one?
It's a good initiative. I just hope that if it's down to the Elmers to make themselves known and apply for the awards, that modesty won't stop people who are genuinely deserving applying. And equally, if it relies on the person who has received the Elmering to do the nominations, I hope that people who genuinely merit being nominated do actually receive those nominations. But apart from that, and possibly a slight question mark over the age side of it, yes, I think this is a very good idea.
Yeah, I think so. Ed, what's your thoughts?
Well, there's a couple of points. First of all, it's not been presented at Dayton. It's been presented at their dinner during Dayton, so it's at one of the hotels. A small point. But the key point is there is already a mentoring, rewarding scheme from a much larger organisation called the ARRL. Isn't there, Caryn? And there, the person that has been mentored of any age can propose somebody else to get a certificate, an award, for mentoring them through a particular facet of the hobby, of the radio hobby, amateur radio hobby. So this particular thing that's coming up here is a subset of that. And also, as we've all just said, discriminatory because it's under 30s only. You might say better that than nothing, but the ARRL mentoring award, in my opinion, is far more important than this one. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, okay. As I say, we don't all agree on all these things, and it's interesting to hear your points of view on that. It's fair. Dan, what's your thoughts?
Well, I actually have a couple of the ARRL certificates, and I have them prominently displayed in my my office here. So I'm just it really is a great honor to me to have received those.
So do I, Dan.
Yeah, and they're great. This one, yeah, I think it's fine. You know, they're zeroing in on DXing, and that's their thing.
Yeah, certainly is. Right, moving on to our next news story, and I'm going to stay with you, Dan, because I know you sent me this one and said, hey, it looks like it might happen, but there's been a bill introduced to replace a symbol rate limit with a bandwidth limit. Now, I think the rest of the part of the world have been on bandwidth, and I know you guys have been on symbol rate for your digital transmissions. So this could bring you in line, couldn't it, Dan?
Right. So this is a bill introduced to, like you say, replace the symbol rate limit with a bandwidth limit. And, you know, actually that when these rules were first put into place, there really was a pretty direct correlation between bandwidth and the symbol rate. And in the intervening years, there's been a lot of work done to improve the data rate using the same bandwidth. And that's what this bill is geared to do, saying, hey, look, as long as you can fit those signals into this bandwidth, you can run those digital stations as fast as you can. And I mean, I don't see anything bad about it. Furthermore, you know, since this was introduced so late in the congressional season, there's not going to be any action on this bill. It's not going to pass. But the good thing is that now this idea is on the table, and certainly the bill can be reintroduced into the next Congress and the next one after that, however long it takes. And so that's really the good thing about it, is that now this idea is on the table, and it'll still get consideration. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I suppose because it's on the table, it'll get talked about and more people will understand or want to understand and be able to have an opinion on it, Dan. So possibly a good one. Caryn, what's your thoughts?
Well, I have to say, while the idea is certainly not without merit, I question the timing. The end of the season really is not the time to introduce bills. They don't go anywhere, as Dan said. I also am not sure whether there are co-sponsors, and generally co-sponsorship on legislation is a good indicator of how successful it will be going forward. So it's really somebody just saying, hey, wouldn't it be nice if, and I propose this, and let's talk about this. And as I say, that's a good thing, but we don't know who stands beside him. Sometimes there are numerous co-sponsors on a bill. We don't know if this is a lone voice in the wilderness, or whether this has bipartisan support or not. It would be wonderful to see it happen, but it's the session is over and done with. The new Congress will be coming in a couple of days, so we don't know where it will go. So let's watch and wait. Let's watch and wait. I don't see a problem with that. I do think, however, that just like many lawmakers often try to break news on a Sunday night so they can get their stories good play in a Monday newspaper, for those of us who still read newspapers, doing something during a relatively slow news period of the year is sure to get you more notice, again, from a political standpoint, not from a ham radio standpoint. So that's really why I have a little bit of a skeptical eye on this, and actually the story we'll be talking about after this. Any laws that are proposed at the very tail end of December, just sit there for a bit. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, well, being in the UK, we don't always understand how your laws come about and how it all works, and I'm sure it works both ways across the pond. Edmund, you got any thoughts on this one?
You can write down what I know about US politics on the back of a QSL card, so there's nothing I can really add to this, Martin, I'm afraid.
Well, yeah, I think it's moving this part of legislation in the US into the same as the rest of the world, so I think it's probably a good one, Edmund. Ed, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to point out one comment from Rick Roderick, the president of the ARRL, and where he says, I hope that the Commission will act to remove this harmful limitation without waiting for the bill to be passed. Yeah, I think we all agree with him on that, but Dan was telling us before we started this recording that basically the FCC is limited on introducing their own rules now because they can all be challenged in the High Court. So, yeah, this is something that's been around for a while. It's actually, I believe it's the thing that gets overridden or updated in times of emergency so that higher speed data communications can be used by amateur radio, but only on a temporary basis. Is that right, Dan?
Well, yeah, sort of. So the FCC still can make rules, but those rules can be challenged in court. And if the laws don't specifically say certain things, then those could be overturned by the courts. This happened in the case of I think, and I'm no lawyer, right? Except I play one on ICQ podcast. But I'm no lawyer. But the way I interpret the Supreme Court ruling is that the rules don't necessarily have force of law anymore. So these government agencies, which were empowered to make these rules, if they make rules that seemingly infringe on people's rights, then they can be challenged and then thrown out. So the rules would maybe go into effect, but if challenged, I don't know who would challenge this particular rule, but then they could be overturned. So what this law is doing is sort of preempting that. They're saying, hey, no, we're going to put this in the law, and then that's it.
Yeah. But as I said, isn't there something like there's been emergencies and emergency communications where they wanted to use higher speed data rates, that there's been some exclusion brought in by the FCC on a temporary basis so that
so the
higher
FCC
speed can be used?
You're right. So the FCC has done that in certain cases, and the way the Part 97 rules are written is that basically you can almost do anything in a real emergency. So, that's sort of a hazy part of the regulations anyway.
Okay, so this isn't being done purely to formalize that. It's more to move the US amateur radio field and data communications into the 21st century, as opposed to measurements that were made in the last century. Methods.
Right. And like the last paragraph says in this press release, it says here, ARRL Legislative Committee Chairman John Robert Stratton, N5AUS, added, the symbol rate limit hampers experimentation and development of more efficient HF data protocols by U.S. amateurs, which is, absolutely true. And so, and then he goes on to say, this will promote and incentivize U.S. amateurs to experiment with and develop even more efficient protocols. So, I mean, that's the whole key here. And it's not like they're asking for more bandwidth. The 2.8 kilohertz is still would be the maximum bandwidth allowed, which of course is the bandwidth of a single sideband phone signal. So,
yep,
I don't see why there's opposition to it. Personally,
it does seem a strange one, Dan. It does seem a strange one, but as long as we're not causing interference, and I don't see what the problem is.
Right, exactly.
But also, moving to our next news story, which are probably going to be many of the same answers, there's also another bill being introduced to eliminate private land use restrictions on amateur radio. Now, I read this as trying to sort out the HOA problem, and that's been going around for a long time. I remember interviewing the ARRL president in Friedrichshafen in 2015 on this subject. So, it's been going around a while, Caryn, hasn't it? So, what do you think?
Yeah. This is an old one, Martin, and this is a sticking point for a lot of people. An increasing number of new developments throughout the country are gated communities, or neighborhoods that have HOAs, or they're condominiums, or they have all sorts of rules. And there have been countless stories on Newsline about this, where antennas are being challenged. In some cases, perhaps rightly so, because they have caused interference and some measures needed to be taken. But basically, most of the cases, people will say, oh, they're ruining the view. We don't want an antenna. It aesthetically is not beautiful. So I think a lot of language in this would have to be worked out. This one will not be as easy a thing to pass. And frankly, I think there might even be a good bit of opposition from the very wealthy developers of these communities who promise elegant living and private community living and an incredibly wonderful lifestyle. They have deep pockets, and they make their contributions to the lawmakers to act in their best interest. So this is going to be a tough one if indeed this bill goes anywhere. As I said with the previous bill, here we are, the end of December into early January. You're not going to see much action on it. It could die, but the issue is at least in the forefront now and open to discussion. I'm not optimistic, and I'm sorry I have to say that, but I hope I'm proven wrong. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, I do hope you're proven wrong, Caryn, but this one's been going on, at least I've known about it for over 7 years now. So, is it ever going to make it? I don't. Dan, what's your thoughts?
Well, I'll just echo almost everything Caryn said, is that this particular bill does have a lot of opposition, and it should. Well, first off, I don't know that the FCC actually would have any jurisdiction to pass a rule that has what's in this bill. But if they did, this is one that would definitely be challenged in court right away, because, as she says, the developers and all that, they have a lot of money. That's basically what scuttled the previous bill on this, is that it was challenged, and then the previous bill too also was so watered down that it really was kind of, at least in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of other people, it was so watered down that it really didn't protect amateur interest all that much anyway. So this one is going to be a little bit tougher, but if it does get into law, well, then it will be the law of the land, just like the previous one. But I think the previous bill about data rates and bandwidth will be an easier sell than this one for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's say, I hope this one does get sorted. Ed, what's your thoughts?
Well, I've got to jump in and say exactly what Dan said, that I can't really add anything to what Caryn said. So, yeah, I'm agreeing with everybody, and I can't really add anything, Martin. Back to you.
Yeah, I know it's more of a US-centric thing, and it has kicked around for a long time. But it'd be nice that amateurs would be able to put sensible antennas up on their properties, I would have thought. Edmund, what's your thoughts?
I live in the wrong country.
Why is that, Edmund? I've seen your garden. You've got plenty of antennas up.
Yeah, but I don't live in an HOA, thankfully. Yeah, there's nothing sensible I can add beyond what our friends in America there have said already, Martin.
Well, as I said, this was an American-centric story. It has gone on for years. Let's hope that by raising its profile again, something might happen about it. Now, our next news story, Chris emailed me, Chris Howard M0TCH, he emailed me this just before we went live, and it's effectively the end of the Yaesu FT818. Now, this is not rumour mongering. There is a video up on YouTube with John Crook telling everybody about this, but I would suggest the FT817, its predecessor, and the 818 really put QRP on the market for the masses back about 20 years ago. So I think it's going to be a shame that they won't be around, or won't be new ones around from now on. What do you think, Edmund?
Well, it's an amazing achievement, really, because the 817, then the 817ND, then the 818, end-to-end, lasted about 20 and a bit years, something like that. And although it's an old design now, in terms of ruggedness and having a shack in a box with a battery inside it, I don't really think there's anything else that quite compares, or at least not at the price point that the 818 sells at. The video is well worth watching. It's on the official Yaesu USA YouTube channel, and John emphasises two things. Firstly, it's only production of new radios that is stopping. It's not support for existing ones. So if you've got an 817 and an 818 and you need it repairing or something like that, then it's not the complete withdrawal of aftercare support as well. It's just that no new radios are being made. And the second point he made was that this is simply a discontinuation notice. It doesn't imply or infer that a brand new radio is just around the corner. It's simply that they're stopping making the 818 due to difficulties in obtaining the parts that they need to do it with. So it's the end of an era. I expect ICOM with their IC705 firmly under their arm are probably rubbing their hands to an extent, but it just makes me wonder what Yaesu are going to do next. The only real alternatives that are in production at the moment are the 891 and the 991, the 891 being HF only with no internal battery and 100 watts, and the 991 same, but with VHF and UHF and an internal antenna matching unit. So those are the only two, really. It's a real shame that Yaesu didn't bring out anything as the direct descendant of the FT857D. I think they would have been onto a winner if they did that, but yeah, that's it really. I hope eventually Yaesu will bring something out, maybe the 819 as a direct descendant from this lineage, but I love my little 817ND, and I'll be sorry to see this era come to a close, Martin.
Yeah, well, I know what you mean, because I've had a couple of 817s. I've still got one. I also had an ICOM 703 up until middle of this year. So, I'm quite into QRP, but shortage of manufacturing components is obviously a problem. Now, you worry about this, but if you just wanted to fill the QRP market, Japan has a massive market for 10-watt user licenses. A lot of Japanese amateurs are only allowed 10 watts, and there's a fair chance that they could move one of the other radios as a 10-watt only, but it really does depend on how you're using it going forward. And if not, why not just turn the radio down to 10 watts or 5 watts or whatever? Ed, they also talked about dropping the FTM 400, which was the mobile dual band YSF radio, as well. So there's 2 radios going, isn't there?
Yeah, and the key point that was made in both the announcement and the video was the reason they're going is because they can't get the parts to build them anymore. It's not, some people would say, okay, both designs are old, but no, they're actually stating very clearly the problem they've got is that they simply can't get the parts. With the FT818, that is not a surprise to me in some ways, because the reason the 818 came out was because they couldn't get some of the parts for the 817ND, and then the FCC told them you have to give it a different name or number because, you've changed parts in it. Therefore, for it to get certification, you have to go through all the certification again, and it needs to be called something different. So you can either make it a Mark II or Mark III or whatever, or change the number. So they made the 818. And basically the same radio, but with the parts changed in it that they could get as alternatives to what was in the 817. The fact that the rest of the 20-year-old design was also using old components, really, it doesn't surprise me when there's a general shortage of electronic components that some of the older ones are no longer being produced. And hence the older designed radios are probably going to be the ones that are going to get affected first, and hence the FTDM 400 and the FT818 ND are both old designs, and hence, if you can't get the parts, you really can't do an awful lot except finish them and perhaps look to a new design. There was, before the 818 came out, there was a rumour of a 791, which would then follow the numbering scheme of 991, 891, 791, in the way that the 8X7 numbering worked with the 817, 857, and 897 that preceded them. That was all only rumour, and that's the other thing they've clearly said. Yaesu USA have clearly said is that there is no replacement for the 818 at the moment. And I guess, as always, it'll be a matter of if there's a market for it, and once the supply of components is stable again, then maybe they can look at a 791 or an 819 or whatever they decide to call it. Yeah, I also had an FT817ND. In fact, it was the only radio I brought with me when I flew back from Australia to live in Germany before all my other radio gear came across on the ship. And that radio and dipole got me up on the top of some SOTA summits here, working all the way around the world on 2.5 or 5 watts. So it's a great radio. So those who have them, hang on to them. Those who are thinking about buying them, get busy and buy your 818 while you can still get them. You won't regret it. It's a lovely radio. It's solid. It's not, there's no waterfall. It's not all the new SDR technology, but it simply works and works very well. So we are not sponsored by Yaesu. I no longer have my Yaesu radio. I sold that some time ago. But it's a shame, as others have said, it's a shame to see that radio come to the end of its existence, so to speak. And let's hope there is something to come out to keep going. I think on the QRP radio market, it's actually changed quite a lot. There's a lot of smaller manufacturers now and kits that are covering the QRP market now a lot more than they used to be. But the FT817 certainly did bring QRP to the masses, as I think Martin said. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, and I had a couple of 817NDs. I still got my original. I love it to bits. What I will say, guys, though, if you're thinking of buying one, buy it soon, because when they go short supply, the price will go up. I know I bought a FT450 about 3 years ago now, and they were going for, I think I paid about £450 for it, and they were going for between £650 and £700 on the second-hand market 3 years later. In fact, the dealer gave me more than I paid him for it originally to get it back off me. And mine was hardly used because it lived in the shack in Ireland where Colin was at the time, and it had hardly any time on it and the box and everything. But if you're going to buy one, get it soon, because they will go up in price. And that's me panicking the market, I'm afraid. Caryn, what's your thoughts?
Okay, Martin, I have Yaesu rigs. I cannot speak specifically to this model. I'm not familiar with it and haven't done much QRP operating. I have an 891 and my beloved 450D, which I got the first year I was licensed. And I love that radio. And I can only say, just to add as a personal comment, it was hard to even get a new microphone for that radio 2 years ago. The support for it and components just stopped becoming available. And I am going to cling to this 450D, which is no longer in production. It's sad. It's a nice little radio. It does good basic stuff. So my heart goes out to the people who love this QRP rig. It sounds like it's a gem. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, well, hang on to your 450D, Caryn, because in fairness, I regretted getting rid of mine when I sold it. But I was having a shack replenish, and it went. It was a lovely radio. It does what it says on the tin. And because you can connect microphones via the RJ45 plug on the end, you can rewire other microphones in. So don't worry too much about microphones and things like that, Caryn. Dan, did you ever own an 817, 818?
No, I never have owned one. When I went to a QRP rig, I was fortunate enough to find a KX3 at a pretty decent deal. But, they keep saying, well, we can't get the parts anymore. I wonder what exactly those parts are. Because, you can get anything for a price. And I'm guessing that they just don't find it economical to get those parts. And so in other words, I think they're basically abandoning the market because their product just didn't compete with the IC705. I don't know how else to explain it. The 818 has only been around 3 or 4 years, right? So I don't know. It just sounds a little shaky to me, saying, well, we can't get parts anymore.
Working for a company that manufactures radios, parts have become seriously short supply, and we have had customers ask for us to make certain items, and the chips are not available anymore. And then you have to look around, and if you can buy them, you're buying them a sort of second old stock where somebody's gone bankrupt, or you're buying some of these chips. The boards have been specifically designed to take a specific chip, and if that chip goes out of production, or the suppliers are no longer stocking them, you're screwed, Dan. Unfortunately, there's not a lot.
Yeah, but if somebody came to you and said, "Hey, I want 10,000 of these," wouldn't you find a way to make 10,000 of them?
You'd try very hard. You'd try
Right.
very
And
hard.
so I'm guessing that the bigger factor here is that the demand has gone down, and that being the case, they don't think it's worth the effort.
You might be right. The other thing is the cost of manufacturing. If the chip manufacturer doubles the price of the chip, then he's going to put the price up quite significantly, because all components have gone up over the last few years. And when I was working for a dealer many moons ago, they don't make a horrendous market on selling the rigs itself. They make a bigger markup on accessories than they do on the rigs, because, it's a cutthroat market. All the dealers are trying to undercut each other. And, Yaesu, Kenwood, ICOM, whoever, come out with a price, and the dealers discount it to try and get your money. And they're all trying to discount each other, and they don't make very much money on selling rigs, quite honestly, profit-wise. So, yeah, you start.
You know what? And I hear you. I hear you all. I hear exactly what you're saying. And all I'm saying is that I still think the big thing is the lack of demand. If the demand was really there, then everybody would make a profit, and they could charge more for them, and everybody's happy. But because of the competition, it's business, right? Business is cutthroat.
Yeah.
And the IC705 is just a much better product.
It's a much newer design with a much more interesting waterfall display and things like that. And look, let's be honest. The 705, the ICOM's IC705, it looks a far more sexy radio than an FT818 does today. However...
Yeah, but I'd hate to drop one.
I'd hate to drop either of them, quite honestly. But the
817 would survive.
It probably would. But in fairness, going forward, it is an old design. And it probably has run its course. Let's be honest.
But let's be honest to this as well. The shortage of parts isn't only affecting old design radios. The latest K4 from Ellicraft, there are delays. They've got an order book, who knows how long. They've got a lot of people waiting for the radios, and they just can't get some of the parts. So the part shortage is a real problem. Now, I agree also with Dan that any company with any sense is going to look at several things. One is, can I get some alternative part? What will it cost? What will the rework cost be? And when I get the whole thing done, what's my sale price to the customer at the end? Am I going to sell them? And if the answer is either I don't know or no, then you stop making the product. That's just basic economics. But I'm just waiting to see how many other manufacturers, amateur radio manufacturers, are going to have to either delay production or stop production of some of their models, because this parts shortage isn't going away in the short term.
Yeah, well, I would say on this one, at least John Crook stood up and told us that these two radios are going out of production. It would have been much easier for them to have just kept quiet, and suddenly people couldn't have got them and not even made the announcement. So I think we know now about it. People who want the radios have got an opportunity to get them before they're like rocking horse manure, and we can go forward from there. So, yeah, it's a shame. It's an end of an era for that type of radio, but at least we know. Last news story, not really a news story. It was a bit of fun that Dan and I found. It's actually on Dan's website. Who says CW Ops don't have a sense of humour? Well, I'm going to ask you, Dan, do they?
Oh yeah, I think these are great. I put an example on my website, but I'll read this one here just to give you all an example. And they're all like what we call here in the U.S. dad jokes, which are really kind of dopey jokes, right? Here's the first joke I put on. Why was Samuel Morse bad at canoeing? Answer, he did not have a dual paddle. Oh. So there's 28 of them on there, and they're all the same. They're all the same level of cringeworthiness. So, if you're interested, go check them out. They're at all different speeds. The slowest speed being 12 words per minute. And if you want to test how fast you can copy, I think they're up to 35 as well. So anyway, they're just fun, and I liked it.
Yeah, I think they're what we would call in the UK Christmas cracker jokes. You usually get some horrible Christmas cracker jokes like that. But hey, it was meant as a bit of fun. Caryn, you haven't spotted these yet, have you? But I'm sure you're going to have a listen afterwards.
I am obligated to have a listen afterward. I've got to pick up some new material for my next QSO on CW. Are you kidding? Of course. Dan, I need to ask you, the faster the speed goes, do the jokes get funnier? Are you rewarded?
No,
Do the QR?
No, they don't, unfortunately.
This is sad. QRS operators, such as myself, would like some good material, but I guess if the slow folks and the faster folks get the same level of humor, I think that's good news. I think this is fabulous, by the way. We've all got to laugh. I mean, who doesn't send HI on a regular basis? If you don't put that in your QSO, that's sad. Unless you're on the Titanic and you're sending what you're sending, you should be able to kick back, relax, and laugh. And this is fun. I should add, Long Island CW Club, which, as we all know, has these really excellent lessons for folks who want to learn, and it's where I learned. Some of the exercises they have in the informal classes, just an informal meet and greet for people who want to show up, they have game night. And yeah, there are games you can play and jokes you can tell in CW. So I say, why not? Why not? Dan, I think it's a good thing. I'm glad we're including it this week. Go forth and laugh. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah. Well, this is the not very serious side of the ICQ, but yeah, I thought it was great fun. Edmund, you do a bit of Morse on the quiet, don't you?
Not very much, but I will be listening to these jokes and seeing if I can copy them.
Right. Well, when I come on the South Coast next time, you can tell me a few of them. But yeah, I'm not a Morse person. What about you, Ed?
I'm just wondering, in some countries, the use of amateur radio for entertainment is actually not allowed. If somebody were to send these jokes over CW, and I'm serious, Dan, over CW, is that classified as entertainment? And are they then breaking the regulations of their license? It's possible. It's possible.
Only if someone laughs, then it's not entertaining. If nobody laughs.
Well, if you only send them on weekends, you're okay.
Yeah.
Oh
in Germany,
yes.
that is, yeah.
In the top part of Top Band, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that wasn't a joke from me. Actually, that was a serious point. I know, for example, that in certain countries, you're not even allowed to send news broadcasts without having a special permission from the regulator. And the playing of music in those is definitely not allowed because that's considered entertainment. So telling a joke is telling a joke entertainment. Yeah, as you say, depends on the joke. With some of the ones I've heard so far from here, no, they're not entertaining. But no, that's not true. Apart from that, it's a good, fun thing that is obviously getting distributed via the internet anyway, between CW ops, and there's obviously no regulations that stop that.
Well, we do have a regulation against music here in the U.S., but not jokes yet. Maybe we'll get some representative to introduce that law. You can't tell jokes on amateur radio.
Well, they probably want to ban the ICQ podcast as well because we have too much fun, but that's another story. Oh, dear. Anyway, it was just meant as a little bit of fun at the end. Yes, go visit Dan's blog, KB6NU. Just look for KB6NU and you'll find Dan's blog. No problems at all. It's a bit of fun and it's a chance for you to practice your Morse receiving at different speeds. And yeah, it's a bit of fun for the end of the year. Right, there's always left for me to do now is to find out what the guys have been up to since we last chatted. So, Caryn, ladies first, what have you been up to?
Well, I operated in the 12 Days of Christmas special event, which was wonderful to have this back after a year's absence by the organizers. And I was Whiskey 2 Tango, 2 Turtle Doves. So I was one of the ops, much sought after, and had a great time, even did a little bit of CW, most of it on sideband though, because part of the fun of operating a special event station during the holidays is to have a little rag chew with each of the people. It's not a contest. It's a way to extend wishes for the new year and to celebrate Christmas. So I did that. Then I operated special event K2B right on Christmas Day because one of the members of my club shares a Christmas birthday with me. So we get on the air as K2B and we wait for the party to show up and we work as many people who wish to get on HF and wish us happy birthday. So that was also fun. But the best is yet to come. Weather permitting, and it looks like weather will be permitting this Friday, I finally get myself out into the park for my first POTA, and I will be operating from inside my car because I may be crazy, but I'm not that crazy. We're having really cold temps. So I'll be on 20 meters this coming Friday, the last Friday of December. Then I will be working. I'll be in the straight key night for the new year, and then operating as K3Y/2 in that special event. I better get myself on the schedule. I just reminded myself I haven't yet signed up for a shift with the Straight Key Century Club. So it looks to be a busy season and looks to be a lot of fun. And I got some nice gift certificates for amateur radio purchases this season. Santa was very good to me. So we can look forward to good times in 2023. That's about it, Martin. Back to you.
God, Caryn, you make me sound a very lazy person after all what you're going to be doing over the next few days and what you've done. But you sound to say you've enjoyed yourself, which is the most important thing. And yeah, carry on enjoying. Dan, what have you been up to?
Well, aside from telling jokes on Morse code, I've actually designed my first printed circuit board, and it's really a simple board. It's a figure T1 from the technician class question pool, which just consists of a resistor, a transistor, and a lamp and a battery. And so, four components. You think, well, how simple can that be, right? Well, let me tell you, it's when you're doing it for the first time, there's always something that comes up. You have to figure out what footprints to use, and just a lot of little things that at the end there that took a lot of time. But I finally got it ready. I'm ready to order the boards and gonna sell them. I'm going to sell them to instructors that want to use them for demonstrations in their classes, or even people studying for the test that might want to build a first little kit and get it to work. But it was quite an experience and kind of fun. So I used KiCad, KICAD, which is open source layout software. And I'd encourage everybody to give it a try if they're doing circuits.
Well, that sounds interesting, Dan. And I know when we were doing the courses, certainly our intermediate course, they had to build a couple of things, and we ordered in a small radio kit, a medium wave radio kit, and we also had to do some measurements on a circuit, and we never went as far as a printed circuit board. We gave them a block of wood, printed the layout, the circuit diagram layout on a bit of paper, stuck it on the block of wood, and give them some copper nails. Got them to nail them in and then wire it up manually. But
Yeah.
printed circuit board sounds, a lot more professional than what we did. But as I say, things like that are useful for students when they're learning, which is a good one, Dan. So I appreciate what you've done there. That sounds like fun, and surely, hopefully, others will maybe take the opportunity to have a few of them off you. I did speak to a gentleman, and I'll come on to it. I spoke to him about all sorts of things, but there was a gentleman, Michael, from Denver, Colorado, that was going to try and contact you. I'm trying to remember his call sign. I can't at the moment, Dan. I'd have to look it up. But he's a blind operator in Denver, and he was doing his tests and one thing and another. And I said, we'll talk to you on, because I know you do the study guides and things like that. So he may get in touch with you.
I haven't heard from him, but certainly if you're listening to this, Mike, give me a shout. Send me an email.
Yeah, Mike's a really interesting guy. I didn't realise that he was blind until he told me, but we were talking about all sorts of things, HOA and training and those sort of things. And Mike's studying at the moment for his extra, so he's a nice guy. So hopefully I'll contact you, Dan. So he's a listener. Right, Edmund, what have you been up to?
Well, I hadn't really done any amateur radio for a couple of months, but then I thought over the Christmas and the New Year period I'd better put that right. So the first thing I did was transmit Whisper on the 80 metre band on the shortest day of the year here in the Northern Hemisphere. And interestingly, despite having colossal levels of noise on that band from one or several of the neighbours, when they all have various electrical devices going at the same time, nevertheless, Whisper and also FT8 as well will get through that, whereas CW or sideband wouldn't unless it was, really, really, really strong. So that was very pleasing. I'm not sure if I heard signals from or if I was received in, but I made it as far as the eastern side of the USA in one direction and Australia in the other. So if you've got a lot of QRM locally, that makes a band pretty much unusable for voice anyway, it's might still be possible to do things on that band by using a mode such as Whisper or FT8. So that was quite nice because it meant I could do something on 80 metres when that band would be unusable otherwise. I popped up on the talk group a couple of times, and interestingly, my hotspot is upstairs in the VHF shack. I spoke to Martin when I was downstairs in the HF shack 2 days in a row. On the first day, there was no trouble at all. We could hear each other perfectly. On the second day, I could hear Martin perfectly, but he could barely hear me at all. I was breaking up and it was a terrible connection. Now, everything was the same from one day to the next, or so I thought. My first thought was, is my internet connection playing up? But then I thought to myself, well, no, because if it was that, then Martin would be as broken and distorted to me as I am to him, and I was hearing Martin perfectly. So I walked upstairs and stood in the same room as where my hotspot is, and at that proximity, Martin was hearing me perfectly. So I was thinking to myself, what's going on here? What's changed? because as far as I could tell, nothing had changed. And then eventually the penny dropped that I had got a battery charger, and I was charging up some AA nickel metal hydrides, and that was connected into the main supply via a switch mode power supply. So you can guess the rest, I expect. So the moral of that one is that if you're trying to get onto the talk group and there is a breakup, it might not be that there are problems with the internet. It might not be that there's anything wrong at your end as such. It could be that you've got something switched on close to where your hotspot is that's chucking out enough interference to interfere with your signal going into the hotspot, but that isn't causing enough interference to distort the signal coming back at you from the hotspot. So that was quite an interesting little exercise there, Martin. Other than that, been on 40 metres a bit. There are a few special event stations knocking about. There's a couple from the Netherlands that are going to be on the air up to and including New Year's Day to celebrate that. There are a few from the UK as well doing something similar. The UK ones end with the letters Hotel November Yankee Happy New Year. The Work to All Britain group are doing a Christmas/New Year activity that started on Boxing Day and carries on for 12 days after that, so it will still be going on when this podcast is released. And the item of interest of that is your Work to All Britain book number. So if you have that to hand, everybody on 40 metres will be very pleased to work you, no doubt. Apologies if that's a bit vague or if I haven't got that quite right, but I'm not really a very regular participant in Work to All Britain. And then last but not least, on New Year's Eve, there's a special event call sign from Memory Golf Bravo 0 November Yankee Echo GB0 New Year's Eve, and that's going to be on the Freestar network. So if you like digital communications and you can get yourself onto that, then please do, and I'm sure that the people behind Freestar will be very pleased to get you in the log and will appreciate your support. And that's everything I can think of, Martin, so back to you.
Yeah, well, at least you've made up for it in the last few days, mate, so that sounds good fun. Ed, what have you been up to?
A few different things, but with it being Christmas time and also somewhat variable weather, varying from minus 10 degrees and snow to rainy and windy, I haven't done that much radio work. And in fact, I'm heading out for my first SOTA activation in several weeks on Friday this week, all being well. So that's a little birthday treat for me because it's my birthday on Friday. So I'll see what I'm doing there. What I have done, however, is I've actually built a Moxon beam for 10 metres, and I built it out of hookup wire. And my garage here, I've got a garage with a sort of normal tiled roof, but apart from that, it's all wood or bricks, no metal. So and I've done this once before for another band, but the Moxon beam, I've actually nailed it out on the floor. So I've now got a 2-element Moxon beam pointing due east to hopefully get some 10 metres short path into Australia and New Zealand in the next few days. Can't turn it, of course, because you'd have to turn the complete garage, which would be somewhat difficult. But for something that cost me nothing to make, it's a bit of fun working with antennas. And in that case, obviously inside, so I couldn't do anything outside for the last couple of weeks, so I did that. Another thing that's taken up quite a bit of my time is I've got myself a refurbished 3-year-old laptop to replace the 8-year-old one I've been using for some time, for 8 years. And transferring things across Yeah, and setting everything up, it all takes quite a bit of time to make sure you've got everything. And whatever you do at the end of the day, you've got to go through and reconfigure everything to make it the way that you want it to be. So it's amazing, even though I've got over 40 years of IT experience, how long that took. It took me probably the best part of 2 days to get it all right. The end result is good. Now an Intel i5 based ThinkPad, rather than the other one was actually a Celeron based radio, which was a laptop, which was starting to show its age with all the latest Windows updates and everything. And since it's been Christmas, one of my Christmas presents was a tiny spectrum analyzer, which Frank actually reviewed on ICQ podcast maybe over a year ago. And it's meant for looking for nasty spares on your transmission from your radio or your linear or whatever. But it comes with a plug-in telescopic whip. And so one use of it that I've been playing around with is, and this is probably quite useful for Edmund as well, from what he said he's had problems with, as a way of sniffing out QRM. You can set the bandwidth quite wide, because with QRM you never know whether you're looking for the primary frequency or it's a multiple that's causing you the problem. Set it quite wide, find the strongest one, adjust the bandwidth back down again, and then use it effectively as a sniffer to go and find where the interference is coming from. So, the Tiny SA is quite a nice little tool to do that, as well as its proper purpose. And I'll finish with almost a public service announcement. We had something set alight downstairs a couple of days ago. In the Christmas decorations. Nothing too bad, but it created a lot of smoke. One of our smoke sensors set off, and that's fine. Another one didn't. And then I thought to myself, how long is it since I've changed the batteries in all the smoke sensors? You're supposed to change them every year. And if you, listener, are like me and can't remember when you last changed them, now is the time to change all the batteries out. Not just think this one and that one maybe and the others not. Change them all, throw the old batteries away. It's not worth it for the price of batteries these days. It's better just to replace them. So a mixture of things I've been doing. Not all radio, a lot of it radio related, but it's a hobby that's got other hobbies in it, and there's always things to do around Christmas that take priority. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, good advice, Ed, on the changing the batteries out. And they're right. I ought to do ours, actually. I can't remember when I changed them last time either. So, good one. All right. Well, I've obviously been talking on the talk group to as many people as I can when they come up. Quite happy to chat with them. If they just blip and disappear, then they're obviously just connecting to the talk group, but they're obviously just listening. And guys, I say it every time, if you just blip it for a fraction of a second, you might not be connected to all the modes, because it does take a few, at least a second, for all the modes to sync up. I've been spent a little bit of time trying to fix my AOR scanner. I got given 3 months ago, and I've now decided it's one logic chip that's gone. The fault is pointing to, both faults on it point to the same logic chip. So with a bit of luck, if I can get one, because it's a 1980, 1990s scanner, if I can get this logic chip, I'll repair it and be away good one. I did buy myself a new soldering iron. I bitched like hell about the price of the soldering iron I have at work. And I wasn't going to pay £450 to £500 for a soldering iron. But I did buy a Weller soldering iron in the end, bought a new one. I bought the WE 1010 or 1010. Lovely little soldering iron, cost me about £120-ish. Temperature controlled. It's not the hobby one, it's a commercial one, but they're available to everybody. We did end up, Caryn and I, moving our daughter on the Thursday before Christmas. That was quite interesting because I actually got to drive one of the big vans again, which I haven't done for a long time, and actually thoroughly enjoyed it, believe it or not. But since then, it's literally I've been in holiday mode. Very few people have contacted me apart from on the radio, and I've had quite a quiet period of time, and the aggravation dropped. Have been working on a couple of presentations, 2 for work, and one that I'm going to do for Frank and his group he meets up with on a Saturday morning early in the new year. Just need to arrange with Frank when I'm going to do it. Have tried to contact a lot of you that I've known throughout the years. Some of you I've managed it, some I haven't. But for those who I didn't get to, it's not I don't care. Time ran out, or you weren't about, or whatever. So, Merry Christmas to you. Well, a belated Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you all, obviously. Last thing is, and this is an announcement, I'm sure Edmund's going to write this in his diary in about 30 seconds' time. The ICQ podcast has been invited to the Canvey Island Rally in Essex on the 5th of February. It's a rally we did about 2 years ago, just before COVID hit, and we had good fun. Edmund, Caryn and I did that particular one a couple of years ago. So I've said we'll go. I said I'll let them know how many people would like to join us there, but from the podcast. But the rally season is starting, and that will be good from our point of view. So not a lot of radio, although I am always on the digital talk group, but as I say, quite busy all the way round. So that's what I've been up to. So all that's left for me to do now is to thank the guys for turning up. We've run quite long on this one, but I think it was enjoyable for all of you. So I'd like to thank Mr. Dan Romanchik KB6NU.
Great appearing again, Martin, and I hope everyone has a great new year.
Yeah, well, I'm sure everybody ought to. I'd like to thank Caryn, KD2GUT.
We're finishing the year with a flourish, and we're starting the new year with a flourish. Good to be with everyone today. Thank you, Martin, and happy birthday, Ed.
Yeah, well, it's been a good one. It's been a good one for us, and we've enjoyed it. And Mr. Edmund Spicer, M1MRB.
Thanks for having me on, Martin. It's been good fun.
Yeah, no problems. And I know I got to see you before Christmas down there on the south coast. I'm not sure if we'll be down over the new year, but certainly probably early in January we'll be down. So hopefully catch up with you at odd times then. And last but not least, Mr. Ed Durrant, DD5LP.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. And to all the listeners and the team at ICQ, a happy and healthy 2023.
Yeah, and I'll agree with you on that one. A happy new year to everybody. Let's hope 2023 is a lot better for us radio-wise. And we do need to get out and support things that are going on, the events that are going on, like rallies or hamfests. So I look forward to seeing some of you at the ones I attend, and I'm sure that the guys in the States will look forward to seeing you at the ones they attend. So 73 all, and we'll carry on with the podcast. 73, guys.
73.
Keep your amateur ham radio podcast advert free by donating less than a length of coax. Visit www.icqpodcast.com/donate now. For all the news, links and information, visit www.icqpodcast.com.
And now it's time to have a look at the news in brief. Me, Colin M6BLY. We start with news here of an operation that's going to take place in October 2023 in Malta. The Marconi Radio Club and the Central Radio Amateur Circle are setting up a joint station and this is open to full license holders who have a passport and they say the relevant criteria to operate in Malta. So they will need to get everybody involved and get over there, as they for this special joint station event in Tafa in Malta. Now there are some prices involved, and so just give you an idea, this is going to be self-funded, so you're probably looking at around a few £100 to get involved in this special event station. But if you want to get involved, the best way of getting involved is to contact Martin Golf 1 Tango Yankee Victor, and his email address is radio-circle@live.co.uk. So say certainly something of great interest if you're interested in operating this joint station, as I say, in Malta with the Marconi Radio Club and the Central Radio Amateur Circle. A great opportunity to visit the island of Malta. In 2023, around May time, King Charles III will be coronated into his position, and RSGB are looking for ways to celebrate the coronation of himself and the Queen Consort. Now, they're looking at an ancient chain of fire-based beacons and ways of potentially activating these areas, and with amateur radio call signs, etc. So in the planning stage at the moment, but if you're a kind of person that, has a great eye for these type of ideas, we're going to put the contact information for a gentleman called Alan Messenger on the ICQ podcast webpage. You can get in contact with him and express ideas that you might have, or other activities that can be done as well to use the coronation theme to help promote the amateur radio hobby. Certainly something to look forward to in May next year. 2023 starts the RSGB's attempt to go direct to full exam in the UK, and direct bookings are now available online, and those will run through till January next 2023. So an opportunity if you're of interest to jump all 3 levels in the UK and get it all done. You'll need to pass an exam which will last about 2.5 hours and will have a cost of £95. But as I say, a great opportunity if you wish to jump through all 3 levels in one full swoop and get there very fast. So again, we'll put the link to the booking system on the ICQ podcast webpage, and you can then contact the RSGB for finding out how you can go about that in your local area. Day of our release, the ARRL Straight Key Night will be beginning. It's a highlight of many hams year, as at the start of the year. They'll be using Morse code. All you need is your favourite straight key or bug. Many participants dust off their vintage radios and keys and put them back in service just for one night. The great thing is it's not a contest, so there's no need for quick exchange. All hand keys, regardless of age, are welcome, and the number of contacts you make is not important. The reward is making many new friends and getting on the air, as they had that first day of the year. And they're asking for a list of stations, any stories and photographs, and your votes for best fist and most interesting QSO to be sent into the ARRL. So again, hopefully a great way of starting off the new year. Right, but now we head over to our features episode, which are radio tips to get you started in 2023. As always, hope you enjoy.
And now what you've all been waiting for, this episode's feature from the ICQ podcast. Well, hi guys. I thought I'd give you a few more tips from the ham shack here, and hopefully they're of use to you. Now, some of these came out of the discussions with the guys over the last couple of days, and I suddenly realised that there are lots of things that we get caught out on, so hopefully some of these will be of interest. Now, RFI in the house or the shack. Lots of us end up with all sorts of RFI, and we can go off and look for it in all the bits and pieces. But over the years, I've found there are quite a few obvious ones to look out for. Yes, the first one I was going to say is the wall warts, the cheap wall warts. We all know that one. But the other one that got me some time ago, and again more recently, Mrs. B had a charger for her car. Now, a lot of new phones effectively have one half of the transformer in the phone and the other half you lay the phone on. Now, they are at a higher frequency. They're not 50 hertz, obviously, because you have big masses of iron. But both her car one and one that she's recently got for the house, if it's in use, will actually pretty much wipe out the 2 metre calling frequency in the UK, 145,500. If you suddenly want to play 2 metres and you've got a lot of noise on the calling frequency, I'd suggest go and look for one of these devices where you lay your phone on to make it charge. Now, temperature-controlled soldering irons, and I know I've mentioned this one before, but some of the cheaper temperature-controlled soldering irons, which just use a triac and not very much filtering, do put out a lot of noise. And I remember trying to align an 80-metre radio, and I just couldn't get it to work. I couldn't hear. And I packed up in disgust, and as I switched the soldering iron off, the noise went away. So that's one. I do notice, though, also computer monitors. If I get close with a handy-talkie to a computer monitor, often they wake up and start to show that something else is on the frequency or close. So just an interesting one to look out for. Another one that we in the UK are starting to get hit by fairly regular, and you guys might, and the rest of the world, start to have this problem soon, is smart meters. Now, when I mean smart meters, these are devices that tell the power companies how much electricity and how much gas you've used. The idea is they don't have to send somebody around your house to read the meter in your house. So they do all the bits and pieces. Unfortunately, they use the mains wiring as the internet. So as much as we don't want to use our house wiring as a big aerial to interfere with things, they do use the mains wiring. And very occasionally you'll spot certain devices, and my wife's cooker oven being the one thing I can think of off the top of my head, suddenly the display goes all screwy and all these funny characters shoot across the screen very quickly for about 2 or 3 seconds, and then it stops. And I'm sure it is the smart meter uploading data. So if you've got odd times when things start to go awry, it may be that we're going to have to put ferrites on our power cables to those devices to stop this information interfering with things. Now, next thing I wanted to just give you a quick heads up on. Lots of radio books and constructional radio books from the 1970s, and I know it's 50 years ago, but there were some interesting projects and books for how to build a receiver, or how to build this, or how to build that. And often they used a set of coils from Denko. Now, Denko was a company, I think, that were in Essex, and they went out of business late 60s, early 70s. So the coils are no longer available, unless you find them on auction sites at stupid money. However, sometimes when you look at some of these old books, you think, I'd love to have a go at making that. That looks really interesting. Well, I was doing a bit of surfing the other day, and I came across a website that I think you guys who build things would be very, very interested in, especially if you like building the old-fashioned stuff. Just do a search for 3D Denko coil substitution by a gentleman called Larry Hytall, Hytthall, and his call sign SM0VPO. Now, Larry's got lots of interesting things on his website, but this particular one, and when you find the 3D Denko coil substitution, and you can put that into Google, you'll find it easy enough, it explains how he can now, or you can, make these yourself. If you've got a 3D printer, you can print up the former and make the coils and have a go at some of these really interesting projects from years ago. Now, I know you might not get all the transistors and such, but there are certainly available substitutes. And, I don't think the transistors are terribly critical on a lot of these designs. So, might be worth having a look. Moving on, we mentioned that the ICQ podcast in our news roundtable that the FT817/818 is the 818 is now going out of production. So I had a quick look around and I thought, what can I do to my 817, my FT817, that might just give me a bit more fun? I still think it's a brilliant radio. One of the things I found on the auction site was a thing called a Bluetooth adapter. So I've ordered one to see what it's like. It plugs in to the back of the radio and gives you Bluetooth access to the radio. So there's things like software where you can control the radio over Bluetooth and things like that. And hopefully I might even be able to control the audio that way. Don't know yet, but it's certainly something I'm interested in looking at. There are PAN adapters available for the FT817/818, and in fairness, the PAN adapter I saw being advertised fitted into the filter socket on the radio. Now, unfortunately, I won't be able to use one of those because I've got an SSB filter in mine. But if you haven't got a filter socket, for a few pennies, you plug onto the filter socket, you have a power lead, and you have a external audio device that you can run out to a PAN adapter, which may be running on, say, a tablet, and use your FT817/818 with a PAN adapter. Now, probably great for home use, probably not if you're sitting on top of a hilltop or on top of a mountaintop doing a SOTA, but just an interesting device. Now, I've told you this one many times before, but I think it's worth mentioning. One of the best purchases I bought a few years ago was my BHI speaker. BHI loudspeaker. It is brilliant, and it certainly helps pick the signal out of the noise. So if you've got pennies to spare after Christmas, you may very well look at that. Now, it doesn't mean to say it'll only run with an FT817/818. It'll run with any radio, but it's a great device. And lastly, unless you're going to use it in the shack and you've got it mounted in some way, the FT817/818 fits flat. It's flat to the desk. So you need a set of either feet or a stand. And there are various ones on the auction sites, and I've even made one out of wire once, a design on the internet, which effectively tilts the radio up at the front so that you can operate the controls rather than have it sort of flat on the desk. So that could be a useful one for you too. Just something else I was doing the other day. I like to finish my projects off and I like them to look good. I've tended over the years to use a piece of software to do this. Now, I'm sure there are loads of pieces of software out there in CAD type software, but if I'm finishing off a box and to make it look good, what I tend to use is a product called LibreOffice Draw. Now, LibreOffice is a complete suite of Office programs. There's a presentation program, there's a spreadsheet program, there's a word processor, blah, blah, blah. But the Draw one is quite good because you can actually specify the size of, say, a rectangle or a hole or a circle and place it where you want it so that when you come to print it out, it fits on your box and gives you a nice layout. Now, it's not a CAD program, but it does give you measurements to do those sort of things. And then I'll laminate that colour paper, making it just a bit smaller than the lamination. and you can do all sorts of things. You've got nice writing on the box. You've also got cover any screws up, and it works well for me. If you've got a display on the device you've made, you can always cut a hole in the paper, a rectangle hole in the paper, say, and when you laminate, all right, you've got two sheets of lamination there, but it protects the display, and you can read it through the lamination. So, a short few tips for 2023, the start of 2023. Let me wish you all a very happy new year, and I hope some of these were of use.
The ICQ Amateur Ham Radio Podcast, serving the amateur ham radio community fortnightly since 2008.
Well, everybody, as we start 2023 there, hopefully there's some interesting tips for you to enjoy amateur radio throughout the new year. With Hamfests and contests and activities and special event stations will be all coming nicely back on stream in 2023. Hopefully our hobby will be getting back up on its feet and growing again and getting even more, moving forward. As I say, we put the pandemic hopefully behind us. And I know, Dad, it was great to start getting out and about. And there's some places already next year you've already got lined up to go and visit for various events and Hamfests, etc. And as always, we'd love to hear about the things you're getting involved in. So feel free to contact us through the website and let us know, the events and activities you'll be putting on next year. And we'll do our best to give them a shout out for you and let them know that, they're going ahead for you there, no problems at all for you. Now, our donor, Kelvin, Golf 1 Zulu Sierra Echo, he was telling us in the donation section, Dad, about he missing you on the talk group. He said he had a bit of a hotspot problem, which he had to sort out, so I'm sure you'll catch up with him whenever, your paths cross again. But our digital talk group, there might be listeners who have got a lovely new digital radio for Christmas, and I wonder if there's any ways that you can give suggestions for people to use that lovely new radio they got on the talk group to make contact with fellow listeners and presenters of the show.
Yeah, no problems, Colin. And I understand that people have technical problems at times. I was talking to Phil yesterday, and he had a hotspot failure. So, guys, don't be too upset. If I'm around, I'll talk to you, and I'm more than happy to. In fact, I enjoy to. So just because you missed me once doesn't mean to say I'm never going to come back. And equally, use the hotspot. I would suggest put a call through every now and again, just in case, because there's often people listening but are not transmitting. And I tend to have my hotspots on in the house fairly regularly all the time. And I think things are certainly well worth doing on the hotspot there, Colin.
Yeah, no, can't agree with you more. So certainly, get involved and if you've got any problems, drop us a line and we'll do our best to help you out and keep you going from there. So as mentioned, Kelvin was our donor this episode, and we really do appreciate him joining not only the monthly subscription donors, but all the donors throughout 2022. Many thanks for your very kind support and helping us to pay our way. It's a very, very simple logic we use here, guys. We don't take any commercial money, any sponsorship, advertising, call it what I'm going to call it. It's all, from our own time, our own funds when, we need to cover, the gap between donations and what we need to run the show. So we ask a very, very simple logic. It's basically it's the value for value model, which basically means the fact is we ask you to think about the value you've got from our show, turn it into a financial figure that's of worth to yourself, and then go to icqpodcast.com/donate and take one of the options to send us that donation our way. And as I say, we really do appreciate it. I mean, less than 1% of listeners actually do donate to the show. So please don't sit back and think, oh, everyone else is donating, I don't have to. as I say, everybody that helps out, as they really does their bit to help us out, and we'd love to see, that support continue throughout 2023. Some new people come along as well, and the more support we get, the more opportunity we've got of doing some more things along the way. So we really would appreciate, your consideration in that area there. Of course, we'd like to thank all of our colleagues throughout 2023 for taking part in the News Roundtable, and for people who joined us for features, etc. And I say, and wish them, a great 2023 going forward. This episode, we had Dan KB6 November Uniform, Caryn KD2 Golf Uniform Tango, Edmund Mike 0 Mike November Golf, and Ed DD5 Lima Papa joins for the News Roundtable. So many thanks, guys, for that time donation, that you sent our way. Right, well, I think that just about sums up, our last recording for 2022, even though it's released as the first show of 2023. It's our last recording for 2022. And as always, we're going to finish up with the opportunity of making Mrs. B a cup of tea, and maybe find a fine treat. I don't know if you've got any Christmas leftovers there in London to offer her, or if you'll be running down to the shop to try and find a good treat to look after Mrs. B there, Dad. But I'll leave you be to make her that cup of tea.
Yeah, no problems, Colin. Well, I'll find your mum something nice, I'm sure. And yeah, I'm going to make her a cup of tea in a minute, so that'll be good. So it's all left for me to do is wish you and the family and all our presenters, and most importantly, all our listeners, a very happy new year.
Yeah, happy new year all, 73's all, and we'll catch you on a fortnight time.
73.